So I'm Robyn LaVassaur, Mr. Blake Eagle, #1 in the company. Give it up for Blake. I know I'm going to learn a lot from Blake, and it's interesting. Blake got to be my student, actually, when I was coaching for Summit, and he was a ton of fun to coach, but secretly I was learning the whole time. I'm like, how do you do that, Blake? Like, give me a little bit. So that's one of my favorite things that we do here is we all get to learn from one another. So Blake has got some really good stuff today around lead conversion, and as do I. Hopefully we both add a ton of value. We also want to know what you want to get out of this class. And yeah, take it from there, Blake.
Awesome. So like Robyn said, she was my coach for a semester. I think Robyn's got amazing tactics. She's also got a tremendous personality and covers like all of the relationship building things and so forth in such a great way. So I'm going to focus a little bit more on some of the numbers stuff because that's just kind of more my speed. I'm a high C, detailed numbers type person. Robyn's going to help you with some of the tactics around closing people and helping to build those relationships. And then what I want to start out with before we dive into any of that, and Robyn, you can kind of go point at people through the room. You want to write or?
You want me to write?
Sure. So we want to just find out what you guys want to get out of the class to make sure that we're covering topics that you want. So just kind of raise your hand, I'll point, and we can write some things down real quick. Those lights are super bright, by the way. So raise your hand for a second. It might take me a second.
I think you guys can probably speak.
Yeah, just
and
yell
we'll
it out,
repeat.
and we'll reiterate it if we have to. How to close
your TBDs?
Yep.
Good, you're in the right class. I like it.
What to do when leads don't call you back? Like ever.
How many touch points and what type?
Got that? How many touch points
Got it.
and what types?
Are you tracking your conversion in Unify through Rainmaker?
How do you track your conversion?
Got it.
How long do you follow up on a lead? There's no way before you try to give up.
Perfect. How long do you follow up on your leads?
Got it.
What are you doing with non-qualified borrowers?
Credit rebuilds?
Yeah, how do you convert that person?
Okay.
What are you doing in your client presentation that you can get converting them?
Like it.
One change you make in the process last week for the things you go from.
Okay. One change in the process.
Setting client expectations on the front end to create quicker conversion, like docs coming in.
Are you talking about at the point a contract comes in or at pre-approval?
From the time you make that initial phone call to you get them face to face, how do you guys set that up well? What is that?
Okay, what is the process
expectations
for setting
for
client
leads.
expectations? Okay, perfect. Jose?
What percentage of the leads the loan officer talks about?
Okay, what percentage of leads?
How
does
involved
the-
is LO?
Yeah, and we'll get you some of those percentages kind of for all the different stages as well.
Sweet. I think that's good.
I think that's a good start. Okay, so one of the things that I want to go over is kind of just some of the numbers around this. So what's the first thing, you go on a diet, it's January, right? It's all, everybody wants to lose weight, or most of us anyways. I'm definitely in that boat. What's the first thing that you need to have when you want to lose weight? Even before, well, you want a goal, but what's to track it? What do you need? Huh? Scale, right? You got to know where you stand, right? Where are you starting? I want to lose weight. Well, how much do I weigh? Is what I'm doing working? Am I actually losing weight? It's the same thing for me, at least, with leads. I'll be honest, I am not a salesperson the way Robyn is, the way Alicia is, the way Rick is, the way Todd is. I'm much more detail-oriented, process-oriented, almost to a fault. And so I've got to create some way to measure these things for myself, and I've got to build some things around it that work for my personality. And so one of the things that I have to do if I want to do a great job in lead conversion is track it. And so how many people in here are tracking their leads, first of all? How many know could tell me how many leads they had last month, last year, et cetera? Okay. How many people could tell me how many 1003s, as defined by borrower, we'll say credit reports, that you pulled on your leads? Are you guys tracking that? You know how many of your leads turned into credit reports? So very, very few, okay? And then how many can tell me how many pre-approvals they did? A few more. And then how many contracts you got? Now, how many closings or how many deals, but how many actual contracts you got in? small handful. And then most of you, I assume, can tell me how many closings you had, right? Hopefully, okay. So we track all of those things, every single one of those steps. And every single one of them tells us a little bit of information about our process and how it's working. Okay, and so it's really important, I think, to know every single one of those parts because that tells you what you need to fix in your process. If, for example, you do a ton of pre-approvals, but you don't get very many contracts, what does that tell you? Well, it tells you that you're not following up with your leads well enough. Something's broken. You're not making your TBD calls, or you weren't impactful enough when you had that initial meeting with them. So tracking it is your first indication is to whether or not your process works. I want to do a little bit of a table work activity. So I want everybody on your piece of paper to write down how many leads you got last year, how many closings you got last year, and what your average commission was. How many leads you got, or how many leads on average you got per month. Let's do it on a monthly basis. How many closings per month, and what your average commission was. So for example, I had 90 leads a month. My average month was 24 closings. My average commission was $4,000. And so what I want to get out of that is I want to figure out what a lead is worth. So to make those numbers really simple, if I get 100 leads and I close 25 of them, and every closing is worth $4,000, I can take my dollar amount of my closings, $4,000, I can times it by the number of closings I had. That tells me I make $100,000 on 25 closings, and I had 100 leads. So what that tells me is every lead I get is worth $1,000. It's a really interesting exercise when you talk about it with your team. A couple years ago, we did it with our team. The price of gold, a gold coin, right, was right around $1,000 an ounce. And so I brought a gold coin and sat down with our team and said, our leads are literally gold. This ounce of gold is $1,000. Every lead we get in is $1,000. And people don't think about it that way. They think about, hey, a deal's $4,000, a deal's $5,000. Well, a lead is $1,000 if you're converting at a high enough conversion rate. Now, if your conversion rate's crappy, you might do that same math on your sheet, and you might find that for you, a lead is worth $400. Still probably a lot, but it could be worth a lot more if you can convert at a higher rate. Some of you may find that it's even higher than that. So what we track and how we track it. So first off, everybody's got their lead tracker, so we all track how many leads are coming in. The next thing to track is how many leads actually allow you to pull credit report. Why do we use that? Does anybody know? They're serious, right? Yeah, that's how you weed out like all the crappy leads that your agent sent you where they won't return your call, where you call them, it's the Zillow lead, and they act like they didn't really fill something out on Zillow or whatever it is. So that's the first measure of that process. So what is the lead quality that we're getting? And who has an idea of what that indicates? So if you've got a really high number there, so you get 100 leads and 70 of them actually want to give you their information and let you pull credit, versus someone else who gets 100 leads and 40 of them want to let you pull credit. What's the difference? The way you were referred, right? So it's really one of two things. It's either the quality of the leads, right? Sometimes it's an indicator that you have an agent who just has crappy leads, right? Everything's coming from the internet or Zillow or whatever. But more often than not, it's the way you were referred. You know, so if you've got agents who are saying, hey, I gave your name to my friend Daniel, he's going to be giving you a call. We track that. We put on our lead tracker. But is that going to convert at the same rate as someone who says, hey, here's my friend Daniel's phone number. I told him you'd be calling him. Just a little bit of shift in their verbiage, huge difference in our conversion rate. So that's the first piece in it. Second piece, pre-approvals. If you're doing, who's in coaching here? Okay, so everybody that's in coaching on your greatness or your lead tracker at the end of the month, you should be filling out the number of deals you got that month, right, that went into either contract. So the leads you got that month either went into contract that month or that you issued a pre-approval on that month. Is everybody doing that? Okay, so you should have a record. I know not everybody raised their hand when I said, you know, how many pre-approvals are you doing, but you should have a record of it on your greatness tracker. Pre-approvals are going to indicate a couple of things. what is the main thing when you're looking at your numbers and you see, hey, we had this many people, let's call it 60, that actually talked to us, and of those 60, 40 of them or 20 of them, we pre-approved. What's the difference there? What's the driver on that? Does anybody know? Yeah, it might be quality of the lead. What I think it is, honestly, is the quality of how well you do your pre-approvals. And what I mean by that is, and I've heard a lot of different approaches to it, but I've heard the approach of, hey, if the lead comes in and their credit score is this, and they only want to be in this price range, just boot them. Don't deal with them. That's definitely one approach. We look at every single lead, and it is our goal to get every single lead pre-approved, period. Nobody on my team is allowed to kick a lead to the curb no matter how bad it is. Now, what they are allowed to do is if the credit score is under the minimum where we can do it, they're allowed to put a credit plan together and a follow-up plan on that. But anything else, anything that they think they have to deny that's got a credit score that's in the right range, they're going to bring it to me and we're going to talk about it, because I think that number is driven in large part by how well your team does their pre-approvals. Sometimes you will get crappy leads. Certain times of the year, the lead quality is not as great. But in large part, that's going to be driven by how well you do that part of the process.
So you guys all should have written that down. Everybody here, you guys hear that, like Blake just gave you a really good tactic. Meet with your team on any loan that they are thinking about denying that didn't have a credit plan put together. Why would we not look at something that's worth $1,000 potentially, right? Like, that's what he's saying. It's worth $1,000, that lead. Why would he not take a moment? Because really, if he takes a moment and finds an avenue, it's worth what?
It's worth $4,000.
It's worth $4,000.
And who's the expert on your team? You are, hopefully, right? I mean, I know there's good LP2s out there and there's some good LP1s, but at least in my personal opinion, I've never met one that I think is as good at putting a loan together as I am. So before I just hand over $4,000 to some other lender who's willing to put more time into it, I want to double check that lead. So that's what drives that number, at least for our team. The next section is contracts. So sometimes people don't think it's important to measure the contracts, or at least the ones that don't close. They kind of jump right from how many pre-approvals I did all the way to how many closings I had. I think the contract is important. So we like to see exactly how many contracts we came in. Why is that important? Why not just jump straight to closings? What's that?
Your follow-up.
Exactly. The contracts, and closings will indicate that a little bit, but contracts is even a better indicator of how well you followed up. Someone that gets a high percentage of their pre-approvals to turn into contract is probably doing a really, really good job with their TBD calls. And I'll be honest, I'm not great at TBD calls, even though my conversion is fairly high. Where we're really good on our team and where I'm really good specifically is I'm super impactful at that initial pre-approval. It's all done face to face. Whether it's me or someone on my team meeting with them, we're spending 60 to 90 minutes with them. We're doing, even for people who don't need credit repair, we're going through a credit simulator, showing them how to improve their credit. We're covering every single loan program in the book, even if it's just briefly to explain to them why they don't need that loan program. We're giving them a detailed estimate. We're giving them a copy of their credit report. We build a ton of rapport at that appointment, and that carries over into contract, even if we haven't done a great job following up. But the other piece in there is how well do you follow up? So you better either be amazing at building rapport in that initial appointment, and if you're not amazing at it, you better be, like, let's say you're in a market where nobody wants to come into your office, and I know those markets exist. You better be amazing then at the follow-up. You better make every single Wednesday, you better make those TBD calls. Because otherwise what you'll see is you do a lot of pre-approvals. Not very many of them, they turn to contracts, but they don't turn to contracts with you. Okay? One other reason why I want to track the contracts relative to the closings. Anybody know what that is? Fallout. What kind of fallout? I mean, we saw the statistic, right? How many loans do we deny here? Less than 3%. So I think fallout used to be like, hey, we don't get the loan approved. That's not really the case anymore. So where does the fallout usually happen? There's a few places. There's one in particular that I like to track, but where does the fallout usually happen? Inspection, appraisals. Where does it happen even before that? What's that? Rate, right? That's my measure of how competitive we are in our market. If I'm getting a bunch of contracts and those people aren't letting me submit them, they're not going into process with me, that's an indicator of, hey, something's out of whack. I need to talk to my manager. I need to talk to Todd. I need to ask for more pep. Whatever it is, that's my indicator of if we're not converting about 90% of those contracts into closings, then we're doing something's off, right? And I can see that by, hey, I got a whole bunch of contracts and none of them went into closing, because we don't turn them down. I mean, once we get them in, they close. And then the last part, obviously, the closings. That's where we're tracking that. So on our greatness tracker, what's the conversion rate on our greatness tracker, or on our lead trackers? Everybody know, like the little box on the side? 35%. So what does that pertain to when we're tracking? That's what's going into that. Because I think sometimes people do this wrong. They don't get it exactly right. What is it? Deals and pre-quals. So leads that turn into deals that exact month, and then pre-quals. So the standard on our lead tracker is 35%. I think if you really want to be nailing it, that number needs to be a little bit higher. So we tracked all of our numbers from last year. We were at about 40% from leads, lead conversion per the greatness tracker of measuring. We were at 27.6% of leads that actually went all the way to closing. So taking into account all fallout. I've heard a lot of numbers as far as different places you can be. For me, the conversion is super important. I think if you're doing a good job, that should never be below 25% that make it all the way to closing, and it should never be below the 35% on the greatness tracker. If you're less than that, you're making a mistake somewhere in the process. And if you're tracking it, you can at least figure out where you're making those mistakes so that you have a chance to fix it. Any questions on any of that? That all make sense? Yes?
On the TBD calls, I'll talk about the dog food with your kids, and the market, see if they found any houses, what's going on. And then outside of that, do you have anything else that's built into your TBD call? Am I doing that wrong?
Honestly, mine are even less report. I mean, it's pretty strict.
So I'll say, hey, how was your kid's soccer game last week, or how was your weekend? And then,
Yeah.
Do you elaborate, or do you have any more meat and potatoes to that call?
So he's asking, is there any more meat and potatoes to that TBD follow-up call? And for me, the answer is no. For me, it's, hey, it's Blake over at Summit Funding. We pre-approved you last week. Just wanted to check in and see if you'd had a chance. I'll reiterate the realtor. If you had a chance to go out with Susie and look at any houses, please call me back if you have any questions, or if you saw anything that you liked that we can work up some updated numbers for you on. But it's very straightforward. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Robyn, and Robyn's going to go over some of the tactics to improve on some of these things.
Blake is so good at the numbers. I look at his little chart and I'm writing down team to pull Blake's chart and start tracking all of this stuff, because for me, I'm super touchy-feely. I love relationship, and the numbers, I'm like, I don't know, are we doing good? We had a good year, that kind of thing. And so one of my business ahas was that I've got to get a little more granular when it comes to those numbers. How many people can do that? Be a little more. What I love about it is that, and actually Mr. Screama himself, coaching me for a year, taught me more than anything, and I tell him this all the time, he took me out of emotions and into tactics, right? All of us get a little too emotional about it. And when you treat it like numbers, not that you're taking anything away from the relationship, but it becomes less of an emotional issue, I guess is a good way to say it, right? You can just look at it and say, like Blake said, you identify a problem in this process and say, if I focus right here, and what do we focus on? Generally fixes, right? If we really focus on it. For instance, if we were super weak in a certain area of pre-approval follow-up, if you shift that, and that got you 10 more closings, yay, great class. You guys learned something that was closing more that was right in front of you. How many people hustle, and feel like you're tired of hustling, you wish what was right in front of you would come to fruition, right? Yay. I think that was one of the big ahas in business, and I think that anybody that's really grown in numbers started to realize, do more with what's right there. And so a couple things with closing more. One, track everything. Track everything, you guys. If I am at a barbecue on a weekend and somebody says to me, Blake gave a really interesting point there. He said, Michael's going to call you. Two things. Because Blake identified that, it dawned on me as he said it, I actually say, can I call Michael? Right? I used to say, great. Looking forward to it. Did Michael ever call? No, you run into that person a month and a half later, and what happened? Yeah, Michael already did a loan, right? Like, you're bummed. So now I've learned to say, can I call Michael? People are actually okay with it, right? They think they're inconveniencing you almost by saying, will you call? No, I want to. Give it to me. Give me control over that, right? So one of the things with converting more is being more assertive, right? Asking for what you want and what you know proves results. If you call, do you normally win? Yes. So call more. Right? Like, that's a pretty easy increase in tactics. So that for me was a big shift. So I love that, tracking every lead and then being more involved in it. Make sure that on those things, I literally am talking to my phone saying, Michael from a barbecue, Aunt Susie gave it to me, here's his phone number, I'm calling, team to follow up on Monday. Like, I know at that point it ends up on the lead tracker and it doesn't fall through the cracks. I think one of our problems is we don't track everything, right? You ever do that? Drive down the road or wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh, I got a text and I forgot to ever track that lead. Like, that's one of it. So make sure things end up on that lead tracker so that you have a system. The things that go the best on my team, I'm sure Blake could say the same thing, are the things that follow the actual process. Right? We built a process for a reason. I break the process and it's a mess. Like, it's a mess. So I need to not break the process, follow it, and then we get better. So, okay, so let's talk about actually closing the lead. Getting them into the office and closing the lead. Okay? How many people meet with their clients face-to-face? Almost all? Yeah? So we try to meet with 100%, right? I think we track at about 92% in terms of face-to-face, other than our out-of-state, out-of-towners. Otherwise, we do 100% in person. People are really good in Eugene at coming in. I know there's markets where they're not. If they're not willing to come in, I encourage you to get on a blue jeans, do something where you are a little bit more connected to them than your average lender, okay? Make sure that you get some sort of face-to-face value. It goes somewhere, in my opinion. Like, I just think there's a lot of value in it. When a client comes in, let's all pretend that every single person here has got a client. And I got some of the guys in my office in here so they can attest to it. When a client shows up at my office, you guys, your office and yourself are your visual resume. Everybody know that? Your office and yourself are your visual resume. So every person in your office is setting a tone for whether or not a client wants to come back, for whether or not a client wants to use you in your company. Does that make sense? So I want you guys to think about that for a minute, about what your visual resume looks like every single time you meet with a client. What do you look like? What does your office look like? Are you a mess? Are you hurried? Are you grumpy? Do you lack enthusiasm? I think it's very few people could say I lack enthusiasm. It's just not really who I am. But I think some people lack enthusiasm, right? You go out to meet to a client, come on back, right? I'm like this. Oh my gosh, let me help you off the couch, Blake. Good to see you. I love your shoes. You look amazing. Come on in, right? The entire time I'm building rapport. Everybody in my office will laugh at me. Like, you can just hear me all the way down the hall, like chatting it up with everybody, okay? That's your breaking point for a client, right? In my mind, nobody is a shopper. Everybody is a Robyn client. Like, that's just how I see it. So we get them in, we sit down with them, and then what's your loan presentation look like? Do you lead with data and rates and those kind of things, or do you lead with rapport? Rapport, right? So if you're leading with the other stuff, you've got to lead with rapport, right? The moment I sit down with them, we talk referral source first, right? Hey, Mr. Smith, like, how do you know Blake? I got to tell you, I've been working with him forever. He is an amazing real estate agent. Tell me how you know him. Let him talk, right? So what makes you want to buy a house? We're always talking about the why, okay? Always talking about the why. How many people ask people why they want to buy a home? What's in it for them? Why they're doing a loan, right? And then you go deeper with that, right? Like, what's important to you? Oh, you know, our house is too small right now. How big's your house? So what are you looking for? 5,000 square feet, 2,000 square feet, school district important? Like, I'm almost doing the realtor's job in terms of gaining information from the client. Does that make sense? One, it helps my real estate agent, right? A lot of them aren't good at asking questions. I am. So I gain a ton of knowledge from the client in that instance. The other thing is they generally share something with me that's valuable. So let's talk about that. Let's say that a client needs to live in a certain school district for a certain reason, and I find out that they're just dying to live in South Eugene School District and their kids need to go to this specific school. And I share that with the realtor, and the realtor kind of fits the mold, but she starts sending them out to another school district because that's all the information I give her about that school district, right? They want to live in South Eugene. They want to go to this school. So realtor does all that. Now, if I ask that client one simple additional question, what do you think that question is? Why? Why is that school important to you? And they say, we have a son that's disabled and they have the best program in Lane County to handle autistic children. We need him at that school and there's a waiting list unless you are in that district. Should the agent show them anything that's out of that district? Not a chance, right? So did I just help that agent tremendously in landing that client? Yes. Do I know something about that client that is now very, very vulnerable, that's relatable, that allows us to be in a deeper relationship? Yes. All because of one little additional why, right? It's funny, we spend less time on numbers and those things because you can get through those pretty quick, and way more time on building a relationship in our initial meeting, okay? So we always talk about what's important to them. The other thing we talk about that's important to them is I always say, give me your payment that you are super happy smiling with, and give me your payment that you are absolutely walking away. Right? Give me both. I have not even looked at the computer at this point, you guys. Okay? I'm just asking those two questions. Then I'll say, give me your out-of-pocket money. Right? Same thing. What makes you squirm? And what you're willing to spend all the way out of pocket, okay? With everything. And I always say, give me everything. Give me just the full amount of money. And here's why, inspections, right? Nobody thinks about closing costs at that minute. Like, I've got a really good idea. People will tell you how to sell them. Does that make sense? They literally just wrote my pre-approval for me up front with what their wants and needs were in that moment. Okay? So I take all that information, and then we talk about why it's important to them, right? One of the things I always touch on is, you pay this right now in housing. How comfortable is that? Right? Oh, it's super comfortable. Awesome. Awesome. Or we do okay, but we don't save anything a month. I'm taking their payment up $700. Does that tell me the transaction's going to be hard or easy? Hard, right? I have to prep them better for a hard transaction, right? It's not that I can't necessarily do it, but it is my job to talk them through it and make them understand what they're choosing, okay? So make sure that you guys are taking the time on all of those things. Write down 2 extra questions right now that you should add to your loan presentation that would make you go deeper with your client. 2 extra things. Write those down real quick.
Mine's like exactly the same almost. You do. Yeah. What is that noise?
That's what my microphone. All right, come on back. So as you go through all of those things, they've told you exactly how to sell them, right? And at that point, I take all that information, I go through the programs just like Blake does. We have a great toolkit, like a little toolkit, lender toolkit, the marketing created. I get it out. I line through things like, you are not a veteran. You don't get that loan, right? Like, even though they know they're not a veteran, I just show it to them. You are not a jumbo loan, right? You're not going to do this one. Here's the 2 that work for you really well. Here's the one that I would choose, and here's why. Right? Super easy. I do it with pretty much everybody, right? We don't overcomplicate it. I review all of their information. I make sure they understand the team. I really honor the referral partner again. I very rarely ever bring up an interest rate unless they ask.
Robyn, are you reviewing their pay stubs and W-2s in front of them, or is that done beforehand for
I
you?
just ask verbally. Yeah.
You just ask
Yep,
verbally?
I just
Okay.
ask verbally. So I'll look in the computer system and I'll say, you've worked here for a couple of years. We talk about their job. I always love that. I lead into current client referral scripting right then. I lead into current client scripting probably 3 times, and we're still not that good. We get like 9 to 11 a month of current client referrals. So we get way more, but that, yeah, just. So all sorts of things. I'll get on there and I'll say, for instance, let's say Blake works at the hospital. I'll be like, oh, Blake, you work at Peace Health. How do you like it?
Oh, I love it. It's great.
Awesome. There is a ton of employees there.
Yeah, there's like 40 nurses on my floor alone.
That's amazing. Good work culture.
Yeah, we all get along pretty well.
Good. Awesome. So you know the best part?
No.
I know
what?
you're going to go tell 1 million people that you're pre-approved to buy a house because that's what I'm about to tell you, and I know that you're going to give them all my information so they come use me too.
Oh, of course. Give me some cards. We'll talk about it at the nursing station.
Awesome, right? Like I lead into that all the time during the speech, right? It's natural because we've talked about all this other stuff and we feel connected. That is not a hard transition for me, okay? We review a few things. Are you hourly? You know, I ask all the tough questions. Are you full-time? Anybody ever say that one? Don't say that, right? Like how many hours you actually work. So we get through it. I confirm my team has done a good job. It takes minutes, you guys, to kind of fly through the actual 1003, make sure it looks good. And then we go back to focus 100% on them. I call the referral source, walk them through next steps, all of those things, and they leave. I walk them out 100% of the time. I get up from my desk and I walk them out, right? I'm body language all day. Like I'm hugging, I'm shaking hands, I'm hands on shoulders. I mean, the entire time. Why? Because people like to feel connected, right? I'll pick on Brad for a second, and he said this to me. The other day, I'm walking out with clients. We stop for a minute. We're chit-chatting. I walk them all the way to the door. I come walking back through. I'm buzzing to my office, and Brad goes, hey. I go, yeah, and he goes, you're awesome. And I go, what? And he goes, I just love to watch you work. They know that call it cheesy, like I'm just on like that all the time. People want to be around happy people, right? People want to be around good energy. People feel very taken care of around confidence. Does that make sense? So I still set the stage that things are hard, loans are hard, all these things. You're going to hate the process. You're going to love us. Like I say all those things, right? I do all of that. But the truth is I've asked really good questions. I know what they want out of this. And then I set the stage for the real estate agent. Okay?
Robyn, do you make that call to the real estate agent while they're at your desk?
I do if they're sitting there. Yep.
What does that call
Yep.
sound like?
So if I did get on the phone with the agent, so let's say, Blake, you're the agent, I'll call you. Hey, Blake, I got Mr. and Mrs. Smith here. I got to tell you, they said awesome things about you, and so did I, of course.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
They are pre-approved, and we've got some really good parameters of what their comfort zones are and also what their maxes are. I'm going to download everything for you in an email so that you have it up next. The Smiths are about to get out of here. I want to make sure that you two connect. Are you going to call them within the next few hours?
Yeah, awesome. I'll call you in about 30 minutes, and we'll set a time to go look at houses this weekend.
Awesome, Blake. Well, this is going to be an awesome transaction. Mr. and Mrs. Smith are excited. Do you guys have any questions for Blake? No. Perfect. Everybody's going to connect. I can't wait to work with everyone. Okay? It's a nice little just stage setting. Agent's happy. If I don't get them, I leave a quick voicemail. We send a quick email with everything. They're added onto a pre-approval pipeline. What does pre-approval pipeline mean? They get a call every single week, right? They're added to everything under the sun. Everything, okay? They're added to our birthday calendar. They're added to everything in our world, okay? The moment that pre-approval overview goes out, we hold on to that thing like it's, again, gold. It is gold to us, okay? And then at that point, as they leave, I do a quick download overview, and then I'm off and running to the next file. Does that make sense? Now, the biggest thing that I was not doing that I do now that's been a game changer in the last year is the next day, I call the client. How many people call the client one day after meeting with them face to face? I got two. Two people. That's insane. How many people think they would have better conversion if they called the people the next day and got all the additional questions from them that they needed, made sure they connected with the real estate agent, gave them honor, made sure that they understood who they were going to call for the pre-approval and all the additional information on the team, but inserted yourself in that again to make sure that they remember that they're doing a loan with Sean Brennan, right? It's crazy to me that a commission's worth $4,000 and we think we get to do a half hour's worth of work and then we're not going to end up following up and closing that deal that we just spent 45 minutes of our time on. That's crazy. Okay? Go ahead, Dan.
Robyn, in terms of the follow-up calls, with your loan volume, I'm curious whether you're actually, those weekly calls that you're doing with everybody that's pre-approved, do you always make that call or do you have
Nope.
someone on your team?
Team as well. Yep, so we rotate. So my team does something for me, it's called a call sheet, and it rotates 12 different pre-approval letters onto the call sheet. Day after closing appointments, always on my call sheet to call. Client birthdays are always on my call sheet to call. 1 year after closing, 1 month after closing, 1 day after closing, 2 weeks after disclosure is all on my sheet every single day for me to call every single person. Okay? I got to tell you, it's not that long. It doesn't take that long, I promise. Don't freak out over that. It's nothing that, like, it's not major. What I found in my world is that if my team preps it and has it on my desk, I will dial all day long, but I will not go find the info myself. How many people could have it all prepped for them? Nobody's scared of making a call, right? And it's actually fun. Like, one day after disclosure, that's easy. 2 weeks into loan approval, like, that's easy. Those things are not hard to make quick phone calls and check in with people. What I found more than ever is that I had stepped a couple years ago too far out of my business as I brought the team on. How many people are guilty of that? You step too far away. There is a saying in this business, stay close to what?
Money.
The money. And what's the money?
Client.
Clients, right? So do not step too far away from the clients. At the end of it, they should say they actually worked with you as well, right? Yes, our team does an amazing job. They're amazing people. But the truth is, they should know that they did a loan with Blake Eagle. They should, right? They should be spreading that like wildfire, right? The Eagle team, whatever it is, Team LaVassaur, all those things. They should really know that you also appreciate, respect, honoring their business, their referrals, all those things. So make sure you're doing that. Does that help with how to do loan presentation? Make sure that you're taking care of that lead really, really well. Go ahead, Dan.
I'm sorry, just for the sake of
Yeah.
everybody's context, can you guys just talk about what your production was in units and dollar volume last year? Because I'm not sure everybody's totally aware of that.
Yeah. I was just thinking about what my volume was. You probably know.
I know
yours
my volume
also.
and
yeah,
not
go
my
ahead.
units as well. So, no, we did 274 units for about 87 million in volume.
So I did 330 units, and I think I did 79 million in volume. Okay? Yeah. So that's right. I have a team of 7.
I have a team of 5.
Now keep in mind, just for some balance here, because Todd I'm sure is cringing as I say the number 7. Let me be super clear. I have 5 children. I am a core coach. I am a sales/operations manager in our branch. So, but yeah, give me some perspective in terms of team size. So I give a little bit up there in terms of just life balance. So yeah, go ahead, Brad.
What does it look like? What do you say on that 1 year after closing call? What do you do? What's that?
Yeah, good question. Super easy. You guys don't overthink this stuff. I literally call and say, and sometimes I'm not exactly on the day because I don't get my call sheet on, and then I lovely have to give cash to my team. They really appreciate it when I don't do my stuff. And so I basically call up and I'll just say, hey, Brad, it's Robyn LaVassaur. I got to tell you, it's been 1 year since you bought your house. How crazy is that? Right? And then if I get voicemail, I'll just say, I just want to call and say thank you. Thank you for entrusting us last year to do your mortgage. I hope that you continue to trust us and give us referrals, including yourself if you ever need anything. I made a call the other day. It took me 2 minutes while I was driving to an appointment, and I just picked a name on the list while Lisa and I were driving together. The guy's on the phone, and he's like, oh, thanks for calling. Right as he hangs up, I said, let us know if you ever need anything. And he goes, do you do refinances? Yeah. He goes, could I refi? He is a VA loan. He wants 30 grand cash out, and he did a loan for $300,000. Yes. Was that phone call worth it? If I wouldn't have called, even though we did a stellar job, you guys, what would have happened to that guy? How many solicitations a month does he get? He's a VA loan, right? It's insane. It's not that he didn't like me. It's that he wouldn't remember me if I didn't keep calling and checking in, right?
Well, and how many people have had that conversation with someone who thinks you don't do refis, or if you met them through the builder that you don't do resale purchases? I mean, they don't know. They get these things in their head, and if you don't call them and you don't talk to them, you don't give them that opportunity to ask you, hey, do you do refis? Then you miss out on that business completely.
How long are you spending in your face-to-face appointments with your client?
Yeah, I used to do 60 to 90 minutes, and then I was like, I can't handle this. It's too much, So I'm at 45 minutes, and I literally had to practice it down to a science, how long we chit-chat, what we get through. And again, this is actually a Todd skill that he taught me, just how to manage the time. You actually can cover a ton of stuff in 45 minutes if you do it the right way, okay? Todd has the most impactful conversations in the world, and how many minutes on each one? 10, 15, right? Beyond that, Todd's like, it's just like stuff after that. But 10, 15 is what they do. Rick Ruby has the most impactful conversations in about 2 minutes or less, right? For the record, you don't get to talk, but it does go somewhere. So it's for some reason I still hang up going, wow, that was good.
Robyn, how many loans did you do before you started really focusing on shortening your appointments? Were you at 10 a month? Were you at 15 a month? Where did you have to get to?
Yeah, so I think my breaking point was probably 2014, 2015, where you start to have to manage your time better. It's interesting. People say all the time, how do you do it? You know, how do you get it all done? I don't know. I might be one of those crazy people, but the more you add to my plate, the better I get, because I just have to get more disciplined. Right? I don't get meaner. Anybody in my office will say, like, I don't walk around in a bad mood. I don't cut people off if they want to talk to me for a minute. But everybody knows that I'm busy, right? Like, I'm getting things done all the time. I'm moving and shaking. So it just, I think we actually all have plenty of time in a day. It's what we choose to do with it, right? And are you choosing the most impactful things? It's like having a lead download. You talked about that. I told you guys to write it down. It is crazy to me that your team takes in leads and we go out and try to generate a ton more of them, but we don't spend time looking at a few a day with the team that they couldn't convert. How many people have conversion callback times that they have leads that were unconverted with their team? So let's say a lead calls in, they're hard on your team, they're rate shopping, they're not willing to, give them any information, whatever the case. How many people call those leads back themselves same day? We got about 4. Is that crazy? Who's the best salesman on your team? Raise your hand. Y'all should be the best salesman on your team, right? Here's the cool thing. Your team brings you in that little lead list and says, I couldn't convert this one. Instead of going, okay, I'll call them, guess what I do? Here, Lauren, sit down. Ding, 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 right? I'm on it. Do I win 100%? No. But can I pull some back in? Yes, right? You already chased the lead, the realtor got you the lead, it's on the lead tracker, and we don't spend enough time going back and trying to convert it. We go want to chase more and our team to figure it out, and then if they don't, we're upset that we didn't have more going on that month. Is that crazy?
I've got a funny story on that.
Yeah.
So I know one of the questions was, how many times do you try a lead? How long do you follow up with a lead? And we badmouth the internet a little bit, and we kind of badmouth Quicken Loans and some of these other companies on the internet. I had a borrower that sent me a link, and I thought he was sending me a link to some site where he was getting a rate quote. So I clicked it and filled out a thing. I wanted to see what I was competing against, right? Hey, what's he getting from this company? What I didn't realize was it wasn't really a company that did loans. It was a company that sent out your information to every other company out there. I fill out the app. I click the button. I'm expecting to see interest rates. I don't get interest rates, but what I get literally within 60 seconds, 4 emails, 3 phone calls. Finally, after realizing what was going on, I ignored all the phone calls. I didn't respond to any of the emails. About 4 months later, I accidentally picked up a call from a guy who was calling from Charlotte, and it was only because I thought it was someone from the Core, because it had a Charlotte area code, and I thought it was a Core concierge or something. So I pick it up. It's about 7:30 my time in the morning. 4 months later, they're still calling this lead that I took about 30 seconds to plug in on the internet. My point in all of this is, and I wish I could say we did that good a job and we're that relentless with our leads. We're not. But that's what your competition out there is doing. So when you say, hey, how long do we follow up on a lead? Well, I would say 2 things. As long as you have the capacity to, or until that lead picks up the phone and absolutely tells you that there's no way in heck they're going to refi and please stop calling them, which is what I had to do. So that's your time frame.
Yes. How many people go back and actually call the leads that have been on the lead tracker for months on end? Or do you just turn the page, go to the next month, and you don't realize what 2 months ago had? Calendar that? Yeah. So leads should be followed up on. We actually make it a game with our team. So we go back, and basically each month we go 3 months back of unconverted leads, and we break them up and everybody dials. Okay? There's normally not tons, so not even everybody has to get involved, but then we'll go 6 months and everybody dials 6 months worth of leads, uncommitted. Some of them we're too late on, some of them we rejuvenate on occasion. Bottom line is there's names on a sheet of paper that says they want something to do with a home loan. You should probably find out what happened to it. right? The other big conversion piece is keeping your agent involved the entire time, right? Keeping your agent involved the entire time. If you bug the heck out of the agent's going to help you bug the heck out of the client to make sure they come back to you, right? Hey, I called Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They haven't returned our call. Is there another phone number? Is there an email? What else can I do? When are you meeting with them? I'll try to stop by, right? Like, how do I get in front of the lead that you are about to show a house to? We don't do that nearly enough, right? Your LP1 should be telling that agent nonstop what the status of that lead is. Okay? We're playing phone tag. They've been difficult to reach. Whatever it is, like most of the time, you're really good agents, especially what will they say? I'll reach out. Let me help you. Great. If they don't know there's a problem, they can't get involved to solve it. Does that make sense? They obviously sent you the lead for a reason. They want them to use you. So make sure that you're updating that referral source like crazy. Okay? There's saying on our team, who calls first wins. My team knows it drives me nuts if an agent emails or calls in and says, what's the status of this lead? I go insane, okay? So those are big no-nos on my team. They're very aware of it. Everybody's super hypersensitive to it. They know that their role is to always be reaching out first, okay? Go ahead.
How do you handle when a realtor has given you a lead and now the client has changed realtors?
Oh, yeah, we just got this in our other class too. How do you handle it? So let me repeat the question real quick. How do you handle it when a realtor has given you a lead and it turns out the lead's sticking with you, but they're now using another realtor?
So we call the realtor directly and tell them exactly what's going on. So we have that conversation, and basically we just ask them, what do you want us to do about it? And we give them the option. And we say, hey, I'm happy to call this lead up, and I will sell them on you and why they should work with you, and that's the thing they should do, and try to get them to switch away from this other realtor. Or, you know, if they're with this, or if you want me to just let it go, I can let it go. Most agents, I find what's crazy is they just say, let it go. There's some reason that they didn't follow up with them, or that they didn't like them, or they're upset, but they just feel like that's the way it is. But yeah, we'll basically just call them up and ask them, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to sell you to this person, try and resell it and save it? Or do you want to let it go? And we just do whatever they ask.
What do you do if they're leaving a realtor in your sphere to another realtor in your sphere that are both amazing?
If I feel like we have some influence on it and it's an agent that I can talk to, even if they've already gone to them, sometimes we'll talk to them and say, hey, they were working with this other realtor first. This other realtor is a great realtor as well. You know, would you consider, you know, a referral fee or something along those lines, especially if the borrower's not decided. I mean, it's hard if a borrower's fully committed to this other agent to say, tell that agent to pay a referral fee out, but if they're kind of on the fence and they're going back and forth, that's one way to kind of settle that dispute. Robyn, how do you do it?
I would say one of the big things there is exactly right. I mean, the truth will set you free. Like, we're all grown-ups, have conversations even if they're tough. They're building moments, right? There are opportunities there. It's a great time to make sure you're in alignment and those kind of things. What you don't want to do is avoid it, because I promise you they will find out.
Yeah, that's the worst thing that can happen.
Do not avoid it.
They
You will
find
have
out
egg on
they
your
closed
face.
somewhere else and you still did the loan, and
Yep.
you never told them that they switched on
Yep,
them.
it's a grave mistake, and we've made it before on the team, and it's pretty hard to explain that one. Yeah. Lisa, did you have something?
No, I was just from the standpoint of the client who's staying with you. Oftentimes I have that problem where the client doesn't want to deal with the realtor for whatever reason. They don't want to fess up to the realtor and be honest with them, so you kind of you're stuck in that situation. So how do you address that with the client?
Good.
When they're sitting there
Yep.
saying, I'm going to work with you, but I'm no longer working with this other person, you're kind of like, I have to respect my client and their wishes, and I don't want to cause a problem, so how do you?
I always offer. So I always offer to handle the confrontation for them. So I'll just always say, like, with your permission, I'd like to call the agent that you were working with. They're a great referral partner for us, and while I respect your decision and I want to work with you and take great care of you, I also want to make sure that they understand that they're no longer serving you and that you've moved on to somebody else. So with your permission, I'd like to have a conversation there before we go any further, right?
Yeah.
So
I think the other thing too for us, I'm willing to risk that relationship with the client to, you know, if I talk to the agent, let's say I get a request from another agent for a pre-approval letter for a client that I know was working with another realtor. Before I send that letter out, I'm going to call the agent first, and I'm going to say, what do you want me to do?
Yes.
And if they say, hey, I really think they should work with me, and I spent a ton of time showing them houses, I don't know why they're doing this, can you please try and talk to them and sell them for me? I'm going to go sell that buyer. Now, I know that most of the time they're not going to switch back, and that if I sell too hard, which I probably will, there's a chance they won't use me either. But I'm okay because ultimately it's that agent that's going to send me a lot of deals. This is one client, but they're going to send me 5 referrals a month or 2 referrals a month or whatever it is.
Yeah, tons of value there. Other little things, you guys, is relationship building wise. Again, I'm super touchy-feely. Like my clients come in, anybody with a kid under 10 years old, we're always talking about it. As they leave, they get a Berenstain Bears moving day book. It's got Team LaVassaur's label on the inside of it. Says, you know, congratulations on moving. I always hand it to the kids if they're there. If they're not there, I give it to mom we mail it, excuse me, so that they get it right after then, but the kids get to open it. So we'll send something like that. We always do little things. If a client comes in pregnant, what do they get? They get a baby gift mailed out to them, right? Like the relationship starts at lead, and I think sometimes we treat it like the relationship starts when they're in contract. Does that make sense? It's a big mind shift change. I consider everybody my client the moment they want to do a mortgage. Does that make sense? So that kind of acknowledgement, like, is to me, it's just tremendously important. It helps build great rapport. We had a client the other day. And my LP1's so good at this, you guys. She's telling my LP1 that they got 2 Rottweiler rescue dogs, and they're overwhelmed and all this stuff, and we'll be in on Monday to meet with Robyn, and they come in on Monday, and without me even knowing it, they walk into my office, and as I bring them back, I come in, my team's always straightening up my desk as I'm walking out to get the clients, and I come back, there's 2 dog bones with bows with like little treat packages for their 2 new dogs sitting on my desk. I didn't even know they got new dogs. Right? Like that, I mean, that is easy. Do you think that client's using us? That client's using us. Does that make sense? Like lead conversion, you guys, to me is relationship building. Right? The better relationship they feel like they have with you and your team right at the beginning, the more likely they are to use you. Now, there's some that are rate shoppers, and I got to tell you, I've overcome that tremendously lately. How many people here struggle with rate shoppers? Okay, quite a bit. What do you think the main reason is? Give me some reasons that you guys feel like you're struggling with rate shoppers. Are you meeting with them face to face? Are you asking good questions? Do you feel like you're in great relationship with them? Or do you feel like you're just a lender?
You get a lot if somebody's already gone to a bank or 2 before they come meet with me. That's kind of when they'll bring it up.
Do you address that right up front, Jen?
Address if they've already met with those people.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but I ask, I mean, once I think you get to the point where they're meeting with you in your office and you go through your presentation, I typically get, if they didn't get that same experience with USAA or Navy Fed or wherever else they went, so it helps for sure to get them in person, they still bring it up.
Yep. Go ahead.
What kind of issue recently that happened that they got a quote via online for a lower rate, but that they wanted to see if they could match it. They actually the realtor was asking them this, but they weren't confident enough to ask them if that could match the online business, and because they still wanted to stay with me because they wanted to service with other lenders. That's where I had to draw the line. It's the reason that my rate is because I talked with you on Sunday.
Yep.
I meet with you after 5 o'clock when you get off of work.
Yep.
And I do a thorough job. I will not, that's when I had to kind of like break.
Yes, you drew the line there. You said this is what I can offer you back, basically. Okay, so did everybody hear that? She basically said she had a rate shopper. They said, met with her, loved her, wanted to work with her. Now can you match what I just went and found? Sometimes the answer is no. Right? Don't be emotional about it. Sometimes the answer is no. We can't. Right? I just got a deal the other day. I met with them. They were 3.625 with $1,000 credit on a VA. What? I'm like looking at it. I don't even know the lender's name. And I'm like this. Okay, let me explain something. I'm never matching this. I am 0.25% higher in interest rate at best. Here's what I also am. Right? And we go through all sorts of stuff. I am the pre-approval letter that's going to get accepted 10 times over on a competing offer than BNC Bank Online. Right? I am a known local trusted name. I meet with you face to face because you're more than just a call-in on a 1-800 line to me. I'm panicking about a document that I can't find. You can call me on the nights and the weekends. Like, I am a trusted consultant. Does that make sense? Those clients, went with me at 3.875 with no credit. Does that make sense? Like, it is doable. Now, there's some that numbers are the only thing that matter. Okay, move on faster. We're never going to be the numbers are the only thing that matters. It's not what we offer. If we get all emotional about it and we stand around all day long talking about, you know, how we lost the one deal, we actually lost 5 because we were emotional about the one. Move on and move on quickly. Go ahead, Brad.
I was just gonna add that I think a lot of it too, overcoming the rate objective, depends on where they're at and what their credit profile is too, 'cause it's pretty easy to overcome the objection if they're like 680 or something.
You bet. Yep.
And, you know, usually you can just kindly explain why.
Interest rates,
what
yeah.
the ads are, and then not have to give anything away.
The other thing is, do they really have a rate when they're shopping and they don't have a home yet? No. Just address that. People can quote you whatever they want, really. We'd like to think they don't, but until you have a house, rates aren't relevant. Does that make sense? Like, let's talk about everything else. So I very quickly just divert attention back to everything else and focus on all those things, and then generally we win the deal. We don't lose very often to rates. Do you lose very often?
Not too often. I think one of the things to be clear about is to set an expectation initially of where you're going to be relative to that rate. So like you said, hey, we're a quarter off at best, but here's what you get. Don't talk yourself up, but then also imply that, hey, I'm going to try and get really close, or I'm going to be right there. Set a number that you know you can hit. Hey, we can be within a quarter of that, but we're never going to be the same. Never. But here's why. Here's all the great things that we offer. And if you set that, you're basically giving that borrower a decision. They have to look you in the eye if they're at your desk and tell you, you know what, I'd rather save 0.25% than get personalized customer service. Most borrowers aren't willing to look you in the eye or even talk to you on the phone and tell you that they're going to literally walk away from someone who's an expert and trusted in the industry, in the locale that you're in, over 0.25% a rate. Now, there will be some, and that's fine. You are never going to get that deal anyways. But if you don't ever set that expectation with them, if you don't ever give them that ultimatum, then you don't, if you just say, well, we're going to try and get close, or, well, let me see what I can do, or, hey, we're going to try and compete on if you're always competing and you never set an expectation of what you're going to meet, then you're going to turn it into something that's all about the numbers. So give them a clear expectation. Let them put a line in the sand. Hey, this is what you're walking away from, and this is how much you're giving up to walk away from it. And most people won't step over that line.
1 week follow-up with all leads that you lose to price. If they are in contract and they chose somebody other than you, it is your job to call them 1 week later and see how things are going. We win back deals all the time because they're already frustrated with who they've chosen. Because the moment they choose that lender, what's that lender generally do?
Stop talking to them.
They stop talking to them. They stop even taking care of them. They're automated, they're online. The client can't get their documents to upload. The agent can't get any response. They're not sure the appraisal's 4 weeks out and twice the cost they thought it was because they're using a national panel. Oh wait, you're not gonna hit your closing date? I still can. Right? Do not be bitter. It is okay. They chose somebody else. Call them back, go again. Wish them the best of luck. If they hated that lender at the end, who are they going to refer the next time? You. It's still a lead that had your name that you took really good care of, you guys. That's not emotional. Call every lead that you lose to price or anything else 1 week afterwards and find out how things are going. Okay? You will get deals back I can't even tell you how often. And referral sources, right? I check with agents all the time. How's that deal we didn't win? It's a nightmare. Good. Guess what? You just took my score up with this agent. Thank you, Mr. Smith. I didn't close your loan, but I'm going to close more now. Like that. I mean, all of this, right? This is pretty easy. So don't think of it as an emotion. Just think of it as a win all the time. To me, I'm just like, okay, we're winning again. What are we going on to next? Okay? How many people can call those people 1 week after? Will that make a difference? Yes. Right? Don't think of them as a jerk. Think of them as undereducated about what they should have chosen, and they have the opportunity to come back and say sorry, okay? No. Todd, how emotional was I back in the day? A little emotional. Yeah, so I just learned how much emotions derailed me. I really joke, like it's not a joke, but it's kind of a joke that Todd like stopped me from crying. Like I was a crier and I don't cry anymore. Like I can't cry. Like sometimes I'm like, come on, like do something so somebody knows I actually feel. Not for real, but like I just don't, to me now, everything is just a game. And the moment I'm off my track, what do you think your team feels? Off track, right? So if I'm down in the dumps, what does my team do? They're down in the dumps, right? You start your day off every day trying to prep your team to be the best that they can be. Imagine if you come into your team meeting emotional. Not the right emotional, right? Like, I am energetic, enthusiastic, all those things. They're about to get on the phone and start taking leads for you. If you run a team meeting, it's almost like sending your kids off to school after you've chewed their butt. What kind of day do you think they're gonna have? Right? Like, so I've just learned to just say, like, that's just a loan. There are a lot of other loans I can do, right? Like, whenever I'm emotional, honestly, I force myself to pick up the phone and call more people that would make me happy. Right? I just trade it off. Like, I lost that one, I'm not gonna lose these other ones. What a lot of us do is go, I lost that one, I'm gonna go home for the day. Right? Like, I'm gonna get on Facebook, I'm gonna go chit chat, I'm gonna, I like pizza, so I won't say eat pizza because I don't think it's that bad. But like, whatever you're gonna do. So that it's just a mind shift, and you have to practice. So practice it a little bit more. Right here.
I was just gonna say one tactic I've been using a lot is just cutting down the close of escrow date to 21 days, and then starts weeding the other lenders out if you're in a competitive situation, because a lot of the banks can't close in 21 days.
You hear that? He focuses on what our strength is, and what's that? Can we close a loan in 21 days? 100%, right? So it's fun to say, can your bank do that? Guess what all those online lenders say? No, right? All of a sudden that becomes a big priority and you're like, yeah, let me show off a little bit, right? That's worth it. People like instant gratification. Go ahead, back in the back.
I've been bursting, and thank you for bringing that up. The first time I speak with somebody, I take them out of the market. So this is a great expansion of when you get in trouble, but it's so rare. I leave the first time, the first impression, I tell them, look, I got the business going free, I worked at a bank, I worked at a credit union. The reason I'm here, we can underwrite in advance. You're gonna go see 100 houses online, 10 in the car, you're gonna look at your wife, and this is the one, and it's perfect for the kids, and it's perfect for the dog. And we're gonna win in the multiple offers. So right now, if $9 in a payment, or $80 in a payment is what it's about for you, I respect the fact that you wanna work with me, but our process is so tight. You're gonna win in the multiple offer with us. And then with the online, and the bank, and the credit union, because they all start with a checking account, as the bank teller, and I heard the word. So.
Yeah. So.
The one off, my ad from you, thank you. I'm gonna call them back in a week. I'm not doing that.
Yes.
But it's so rare, and I lead with that, and I rarely.
I love it. So what it basically is saying is that know your value proposition and present that to people. It's okay, you guys. You should have a little bit of like, I know I'm good. I know I'm the one to take care of you, okay? If you don't have that, write it down. Figure out what your presentation's gonna include to show what your value adds are, right? Make sure that you are actually saying those things so they understand the difference. It's okay to put a little fear in a borrower, right? And then also give them the value of what we're gonna do to circumvent that fear. That's good selling, okay?
Real quick, I think we got about 3 minutes. So let's just make sure we've got everything on the board.
Touch point system. So we talked a little bit about callbacks, those kind of things, making sure that you converted. Conversion tracking, I know Blake really went over that. Credit rebuild, we put them on a pipeline, just so you guys know. So our credit rebuilds go on a pipeline. We have little windows of like 1 month, 6 months, those kind of things, and we always call early. We check in with them. We always tell people we'll stay engaged as long as you stay engaged, right? Help us help you, but they got to play along. So that's how we do our credit rebuild. Client presentation, I feel like we covered really well. Client expectations, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, the one change in the process, I think someone asked what's the one change in the process that's led to a higher conversion rate. The one change for us is just getting the appointment set immediately. And I have talked to my team about viewing the pre-approval not as a process, but as an event. I think one of the mistakes people make is the pre-approval is this process. It's like you're going to talk to this person, then you're going to get us some docs, and you're going to talk to this other person on the phone, then we're going to review your docs, and then 3 days later we're going to get back to you.
Yes.
Well, that's a process. What I want is you're going to call in. My LP1 is going to say, hey, can you come in tomorrow at 4 o'clock? You're going to say yes. She's going to say, bring all these things with you. You're going to come in at 4 o'clock. You're going to spend an hour with our team. You're going to walk out with a letter. That is a pre-approval event, not a pre-approval process.
Did everybody hear that? Did everybody see what that was? How many people make them go through 17 hoops before they actually see you? Stop that. Okay? LaToya, you and I just talked about this. This is big right here, right? LP1s that are overwhelmed, you know why? Because you're making them do half the work up front. Like, stop that. Let them have an appointment right away, okay? It's worth something. Go ahead.
Okay, along those lines, who's actually reviewing all the documentation on your respective teams and analyzing cash credit income? Who's doing that?
I will tell you, if I meet with the client, and I do have other people on my team that will meet with clients. We're at about 24 closings. I can't meet with everybody for the full presentation. But whoever it is that meets with the person, they review all of that at the appointment. So our appointments still for whoever's taking it are at least 60 minutes, but they will literally come in with their documentation. We'll look at the pay stub and ask them questions based on the pay stub right there on the spot. Hey, I know you said you're full time here, but it only shows 36 hours on this week's pay stub. Why is that? Did you take a break? Do you not really work 40 hours? You kind of work 40 hours. Hey, I see that there's a bonus here that you were paid earlier in the year. Do you get paid this bonus every single time? We'll do all of that at the appointment. So our appointments take a little bit longer, but it's a pre-approval event. It's a one and done. They walk out with a pre-approval letter. Very few of them leave without that letter in their hand. And the other thing I find is that then you're not worried about follow-up. It's not like, oh, I got to get back to this person, because what happens? You say, oh, I'm going to get back to you tomorrow with some information after I have a chance to review everything. Well, then you got more appointments, and then you got some new leads, and then this file went sideways, and then it's 5 o'clock the next day, and you feel like, hey, I got to get back to this person. So what do? You kind of look at it, and you kind of don't really give it enough time, and you send them out with a pre-approval letter, and then a month later they come back with a contract, and you're like, oh crap, that's that one where I just sent out the letter and didn't really do my job.
Yeah, so. That's the messy one. Anna, real quick.
What do you do if they haven't turned their docs? Do you still meet with them? Do you meet with them after hours or late? Because that's our problem with our team, is we're having everybody meet after hours and they still have all docs. Is it worth meeting with them face to face if you can't have a good pre-approval meeting?
We always ask people to try to get their stuff in before the appointment, but we set the appointment up front. And that was a big, Todd got a voicemail from everybody, I think, about it. Setting that appointment right up front is a big thing, because what do people do? They start to prepare for the appointment at that point. A lot of times their stuff comes in. So my team, as it comes in and time allows, they do a quick review of some things. Self-employed, I don't ever meet with without tax returns. I just don't. I make sure that I have them up front, just because those are such deal killers that I feel like that's more of a phone call that I can get on real quick after reviewing them. So, yeah.
You get them in quickly in business hours so they're not delaying the pre-approval
So
2 weeks down the road.
we're up front with, hey, like for me, when it was just me taking the apps, which I think is the position most of you are in, is I had a night where I took late apps.
Yep.
Hey, every Thursday night, I stay here till 9 o'clock and I'll meet 3 people after hours. However, those spots are booked up right now for this week. If you want to wait till next week, Thursday, I'm happy to get you in next week, Thursday. However, if you can take 45 minutes during your lunch break to come into my office, I'm right down the street from you, I can get you done tomorrow.
Yeah.
How important is it for you to get pre-approved right now?
Yep. So we are out of time. You guys have been an awesome, awesome, awesome class. Please go to the last page of surveys. Give us a 5 if you got some good tactics. It's going to convert more leads for you. So thank you for being in here.